Good afternoon, Thistle fans, and welcome to our latest lockdown interview. Recently, we had back-to-back goalkeepers week after week. Now we've got back-to-back legendary centre forwards following in the footsteps of Jerry Britton. It's Stephen Craig. Stephen, how are we doing?
Not too bad, mate. Thanks. I'm not sure about the legendary bit there, but
I think anyone who lifts a championship trophy with Thistle deserves legendary status. So we'll come to that in a minute, no doubt. But the relationship with Thistle for your family famously goes back to your dad. What were you aware of growing up, and his time at Thistle?
Obviously, being born into that sort of being born into a family, a footballer. It's my youngest memory was being with my dad when he was manager of Cowdenbeath. He used to take me to the games, and when the ball girls used to look after me. So obviously, growing up, you learn about your father, or whether it be your mother's history and their experience in the game. And it was obviously where my dad's career kind of started off. And obviously, as I got older, say maybe about in my early teens, I was introduced to Dave McParland and things like that. And my dad was still best friends with like Johnny Gibson and people like that. And then I remember I met Alan Rough one night at a game. I think it was a Scotland game. And obviously you just used to seeing him on TV and saying, "Oh, how you getting on, Stephen?" and things like that. So it was a special time for my dad because he started there when he was 15. And then got loaned out to his local junior team, Socky. And it's the kind of, my mum always used to say, even when I first started playing football, that she always felt that there was unfinished business there. I think she always felt that one of us would go back in some sort of capacity. So when I got the opportunity, it felt weird because as soon as I remember I walked through the door, and the first person I met before I walked up the steps, after Chico obviously gave me a bit of stick, was the doctor at the time. And the first player my doctor ever treated was my dad.
That's weird, isn't it?
So it was quite ironic.
Absolutely.
Straight away, it was just I thoroughly enjoyed my time there.
Yeah. So this is an interview that's going to appeal to generations of Thistle fans, because we'll talk about you mainly in a minute, which with brilliant memories of 2012-13, but goes back to your dad playing in the 70s. And it's funny you should mention Cowdenbeath, because there's shades of Cowdenbeath in your spell at Thistle as well. But probably the one other thing to ask about your dad, I think if you ask any question repeatedly, you start to get bored of it. But I'm sure you never get bored of talking about your dad's Scotland goal and a goal scoring record, a debut goal, and what's he told you about that? And is it still something he obviously takes with great pride?
It was obviously, I've got all his memorabilia, so I've got some of his shirts, I've got his cap and things like that. And obviously he spoke in great depth about his goal. I think he felt he was unfortunate at the time because the calibre of striker at that time. She had like Joe Jordan, Andy Gray, who were world class, really. So my dad was always kind of on the fringes. But his recollection of the goal was just coming on as sub, and I think it was Asa Harford going down the left-hand side, I think. But my dad always says when the ball got crossed, he lost it in the floodlights. So that's why when he headed it, he's nearly on his knees. So he says, I lost the flight of the ball.
Yeah.
And another thing he used to remind me is when he actually headed the ball, the defender stood on his knee. He says, so when I was reeling away, and obviously to celebrate my first goal with the first touch of the ball, he says my knee was killing me. But the first time I proper seen the goal, it was a question on Question of Sport.
Yep.
With Bill Beaumont and
Botham at the time, was it? Botham.
Yeah, that was it. It was a question on that, and it showed the clip.
Oh.
And I can remember saying that was you on the TV there, and obviously that was before Sky. You couldn't wind it back. So
brilliant.
It's the first time I ever actually seen the goal.
Amazing. Right, well, there's a bit of weekend task for everyone to go and dig that one out. But clearly good genes for you, and you followed in his footsteps, becoming a striker in your own right. And came to season 2012. You were at Ross County at the time. How I suppose how did the move come about? And again, the family thing. Your mum talked about it being fate. Was must have been a special feeling for you, not just you, but your dad.
It was. It happened. And I know loads of footballers say moves, but it literally happened overnight. I was. We just got promoted through the Championship with Ross County. That season, I started the season off really well, and then got hit with a 9-game ban. And then, it was just a farcical thing. We appealed it, and then obviously it gets doubled and things like that. So, and that's a story for another time. And then the game, I got sent off against Livingston, and the game that I came back on was against Livingston. We were kind of huffing and puffing, and then the boys just went on an unbelievable run. Mm-hmm. And I was involved in every game, but obviously most predominantly was for the bench. So when we got promoted, it was obviously there was I was unsure whether I was going to get kept on. So that was the end of my 4th year up in the Highlands, and then George Adams at the time phoned me after the last game of the season. He says, "Look, we still want to hear next year." But I knew pre-season things were going to be tough. Derek wanted to show loyalty to the forwards that were already there. I know he brought a couple in, and I felt I was good enough to play. And it just sometimes you've just got to hold out your hand and say, "Look, I need a fresh start." Mm-hmm. And then there was a small opportunity that I could have went to Inverness. I'd spoke to Terry Butcher briefly, so that was something that was possibly going to happen, and I had a chance to go down south. And then I just got a phone call through it was Shooty Balmer actually, who was the number 2, just saying, "Look, Partick Thistle have been on the phone. Jackie McNamara is going to give you a phone call." And then literally half an hour later, Jackie phoned me, and that was on a Tuesday. And he says, "Look, can you come down to training on Thursday?" I travelled down Wednesday night, stayed with my parents, and then done my first session on Thursday, Friday, and then made my debut against, I think it was Hamilton on the Saturday.
Hamilton, yeah, aye, cracking start. Before we come to that game, you played for quite a few clubs. You were settled at Ross County. You'd been there for 4 seasons, and good number of games under your belt. How was it for you transitioning again to another club, and how did you find fitting in at Firhill?
I think I kind of, for a very young age, I think it obviously helped for my dad. I realised that there's no loyalty in football. I think managers and coaches expect it from a player, but players should. I think players' thought process don't really expect it from a manager or a coach at times. So the fact that I knew my time at Ross County was up, I didn't want to be. My mentality is I can't sit there and be a bit part player. I must be playing. And it was hard that season, the last season at Ross County, because the boys had done that well. I think ended up a 46-game unbeaten run. So I had no complaints. I can't say, look, I should have been playing, because we had Michael Gardyne playing up front, we had Colin McMenamin, 2 of them were scoring weekly, and the boys were winning. Mm-hmm. So I was ready for my next challenge. But like I touched on before, just the fact that there was an emotional tie there to Thistle. So that, like I says, in the first day I walked through the door, like I says, wee Chico was like, "Who the F are you?" And then, "You're Joe's boy, you're Joe's boy." And then he tried to give me like this training kit that was like, must have been for the 70s or something. He says, "There's your training kit." I was like, "Aye, oh, right, come on," like sort of get all your jokes out the way. And then just as I was walking up the stairs, I met, is it Robert? And also I met Robert Reid as well. I think he's the club historian. So he stood and spoke to me for about 10-15 minutes, and I eventually got into the changing room, and I got introduced to the boys, and met the physios and stuff like this. So my transition, like I said, it happened dead quick, and obviously making my debut on the Saturday and scoring a couple of goals definitely helped.
Yeah, scoring on your debuts, it doesn't get any better than that, especially when you've come off the bench in the first half, I think. But a couple of goals, and I guess a feature of that season was Thistle really put teams to the sword time and time again. you felt at home straight away amongst the team. What was your first impression of him?
It was my conversation with Jackie when he phoned me on that Tuesday. It was just he just told me why he was bringing me, and I knew that's what I could. What he asked me to do, I knew I was capable of doing. And obviously, you hear it 100 times before. New players come in and want to hit the ground running. I know it was Duels kind of hurt his hamstring, so it enabled me to get in. After I think it was 20-25 minutes, I came on. And it was just, I noticed straight away for the first training session, I thought, God, it's a really good squad here. And Jack had put together a group of players who maybe had wee knocks here in the Premier League clubs and just really needed a chance. And if you looked at sort of the spine of the team, there was only maybe 4 or 5 years that had reasonable amount of experience. Mm-hmm. So I think Jackie's recruitment that year was very, very clever, and obviously he went on to emulate that when he went to Dundee United. So, like I said, just when you come to a club, you want to feel wanted. You want to know exactly what they expect from you, and I've still got really good friends to this day for that squad that I speak to. I speak to basically on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm. League campaign we'll come back to, because obviously that was the big thing that season. But Challenge Cup, your big partners getting to the final, which is a big deal for the club. A bit of a weird one, the Challenge Cup, because you play the semi-final so early and you wait a hell of a long time. But do you remember quarter-final goal, semi-final goal, sense of achievement?
I do. It's the good fun about Thistle. So it's a kind of unfortunate thing that I was only there for 8 or 9 months, but I can remember every game. And we beat Raith Rovers, wasn't it, in the quarterfinals? Is that right? And it was quite a convincing win. And I can remember, I think it might have been Kenny the physio or Ross said to me before the semi-final, you played our last semi-final, you scored the winning penalty against us, and then it clicked 2 years ago previous, we got a penalty shout for Ross County and went in extra time, and then I scored the penalty that put Ross County through the final. So it was kind of, it's weird how your life always come back to the same point. So going into the Cowdenbeath game, my mentality was that we need to get there. Not a desperation, but we need to get there, and wasn't being disrespectful to Cowdenbeath, but you thought to yourself, like, you might never get a better chance. I know it's the Challenge Cup or whatever it's called now, but it's still the chance to get the club into a final, and it was just great to get the goal on the day, because it wasn't a great game.
No, and I think that was your fifth goal, sorry, inside the space of about a month. So you'd really got off to a cracking start. Looking at your career stats, goals everywhere you went, but never a better goal return per game than when you were at Firhill. What was the main factor behind that?
The style really suited me. I've said this on a podcast about a few months ago. I think strikers are heavily reliant on supply, and people creating opportunities for you. And at Partick Thistle, we had that in abundance. I predominantly played the lone striker myself, like the number 9, and I had so many good people around me. Like I had Stevie Lawless, I had Squiddy, I had Ross Forbes, Paul Payton, Sean Welsh, Banzo, and then you had the 2 fullbacks, so ATS and Stephen O'Donnell, right? So I knew I was always going to get chances, but I just fell at home. I loved Firhill, even when I played when I was going there with other teams. I always loved going to Firhill. And I think obviously, like I said before, the relationship that the fans had with my father, I think that definitely helped me settle in straight away. But I just loved it, and it's just like I said, shame it didn't last longer.
Yeah, without a doubt. What was it like for you as a player then? You've won that league. You obviously really earned the right to have a crack at the top level. You need to be quite strong mentally to then go back again and do it again. Is the fire in the belly what helps you through that?
Yeah, I think I've always been very, very single-minded and determined, even when I was a young kid, just to achieve. And it's always kind of stuck with me that if if you have a long career or even a short career, you want to have some sort of mementos, whether it be you want to have won something at the end of the day. But you just sometimes when you join clubs, you get the wow factor. You think, oh, I've made the wrong choice here. And just as soon as I walked through the door at Thistle, I knew we were going to have a successful season. And again, it was obviously it proved later on that we ended up winning the championship. And was it that old saying, you don't win nothing? What was it? You don't win nothing with kids, or what was in the t-shirts?
You don't win anything with kids. We got this. That's it. Yeah,
that was it. Aye. Mm-hmm.
Alan Hansen and Alan Moore, I think, are the two that have said it. So, goals against Livingston, first half of the season going really well. And what part you talked about, you thought we were going to have a successful season from the point you came in. You obviously saw a talented squad. How quickly did you think in your mind, we can win this, or we will win this?
I knew it was kind of like the Newcastle. When Newcastle were dominating the Premier League, I knew going forward we were excellent, and defending we were excellent. What we lacked, I think we were naive. I think more so. I think it was highlighted when we went to Livingston, and I think we drew 2 each. I think we're 2-1 up with about 5 minutes to go or something, and just we were making very naive, basic mistakes, which only comes with experience. And I just knew then. I remember actually speaking to Simon Donnelly about it. I just thought, like, if we could just get, I know you can't gain experience overnight, I said, but if we can just sort of try and get the squad to grow a little bit as quick as we can, I didn't see any worries for us. And that's obviously when we recruited. Obviously, we brought in a couple of players. When obviously Dunfermline had their problems, which definitely helped us. But just it was one of that mentality. I knew, as a striker, I knew I was going to get opportunities. I knew we had a real good back five. So it's the perfect, and winning breeds confidence. Going on the pitch, if you think 95% of the time you're going to win the game, then the outcome tends to go that way.
Yeah. Just checking out those dates. The game you talked about, Livingston 2 each, 5th of January. Mm-hmm. You scored that day, but soon after the big change came with the season with Jackie getting the offer to go to Tannadice and Archie taking over. Loads of players have spoken about this, and obviously the proof is in the pudding. We only accelerated from there. But how much of a challenge was that in that moment?
I spoke to Jackie the day, I think 2 days before he went after training, and I said to him, I says, his words to me was he would only leave Thistle for, it was 3 clubs at the time, and it was obviously Celtic, Dundee United, Hibs, and that's where he said the infrastructure was right for him to go. And I said to him, I says, look, if that was to come up, obviously it had come up, we didn't want to say too much. I says, you can't turn it down, and any player or coach would be the exact same. And like you said before, he proved to go and be highly successful at Dundee United. But the transition for us, there was none. Obviously, Archie was our captain. I know he was in and out because of injury at the time, but he was taking the young boys and he was playing us on the Saturday. And I think, was it his first or second game in Chard? Was it Morton away?
Yep.
It was Morton away.
Middle of February, that's right.
I think, did Shuggy Murray get sent off?
If it was Morton away, then he definitely did.
Even that game, like I remember before the game, I just said before the training, before the match, that I says, look, we're in a great position, guys. Coming down here, love to prove everybody wrong. Nothing's changed. With Archie, the only people we've not got is Jackie and Simon. I says, there's nothing's changed. He's not going to come and change the way we play. And it was great. And obviously after, I think we drew that day, or we won.
We drew 2 each.
2 each again. By the way, Shuggy should never have been sent off. And then obviously I think we went on and had two or three really good results. I think we gave Dunfermline, and we beat them 4-0.
Yep.
And I think after the game, I remember saying to the press that we have to give Archie the job, because I think it shows that the boys responded, and obviously they did, but it kind of backfired on me come the end of the season.
Aye, but a lot happened between then and the end of the season. Just a couple of months, but a busy time. And as it would happen, we would have the Challenge Cup right in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
Nearly 10,000 at Ammanvale. You started. It was fair to say it's not a game you would watch again. How was it to play in? First of all, the atmosphere must have been great, but it was a bit of a lot of attrition.
It was terrible. But what kind of before it started, it was a special day for me because the last time I got to the final, it was the same scenario when I was at Ross County. I'd played every round, scored the winning penalty in the semi-final, changed your manager at Ross County. Jimmy Caldwood had came in, who had came across when I was at Aberdeen, and it was well documented. Me and him didn't get on, and then for that final, I was on the bench and I didn't get on. I remember he put a defender on with 5 minutes to go, so that was still in the back of my mind. Going into the game against Queen of the South, and I'd been Foxy and I think Archie's obviously not playing. Foxy had got injured, and so did Paul Payton. So I think the Archie had asked me to be captain that day, which was a massive privilege. I think I captained maybe 3 or 4 games. So to be captain on a cup final, it was brilliant for that aspect. But the game, we only really knew how to play one way. They cancelled us out. They scored. I think really, can you say, excitement in the game was the goal, our goal to get back in it, and then the sending off. So I think for a 120-minute game, it was a poor cup final, poor cup final.
Aye, we could have been doing with your penalty kick when it came to that. It's just a shame, but you never know who's still going to be on the pitch in the 120th minute of a game, do you? So one of those things. One of those things. Going back to the league stuff, I think it was a week before this was, I think, your final Thistle goal actually against Livingston, 6-1 at home. Again, a sign of what would happen when we were really on fire. Do you remember that one?
I do. I just remember, was it 4-0 after like 31 minutes, 32 minutes?
Yeah.
I can just remember like I said, we'd blow teams away. We'd done it so many times. I remember we'd done it against Dumbarton, we'd done it against Wraith, done it against Airdrie. Just first half hour dominating teams and scoring. And then obviously the second half sometimes was kind of non-events. Actually, I think it was in the end of February, I'd been contacted by a club down south, asking regardless would I sign at the end of the season, and my head wasn't turned at all. I'd thought, no, I'm really enjoying it here. I want to concentrate on promotion. If we want to go up, I'd like to go and get our start with the Premier League. I remember speaking to Archie and that about it, and he just said to me, look, just keep doing what you're doing, etc., etc. So it was a real frantic 8 months for me, obviously coming through the door, hitting the ground with running, captain the team, getting to a cup final, then winning the championship, but then obviously leaving at the end of the season. So it was a very eventful 8 months for me. But like I said, it's great memories. Great memories.
Aye. I'll just roll these names off for you from that 6-1 game. Muirhead penalty, Craigan, Lawless, Erskine, Doolan. 6 different scorers. Probably sums up that season. Goals spread throughout the team. You know that you couldn't cancel one player out and think you'd got on top of Thistle, because there were so many dangerous areas.
Aye, there was, and obviously you had Aero, who was on penalties, and I never seen him miss one. You had like Conrad, who was set pieces, and everybody else just chipped him with goals. That's what I say. If to have successful seasons, you need goals from all around the pitch, not just for your strikers. And like I say, that the names you just rung off there, they were constant contributors to that.
Aye, he didn't miss one, of course, till the Challenge Cup final. Deadly, otherwise. Days after the Challenge Cup final came the Morton game. Mixed emotions for you looking back on that one.
Massive. Obviously gone from captain the team for 3 or 4 games, and then a disappointment thing for me was obviously it was deemed a kind of league decider. It was a Tuesday night against Morton, so I knew it was got to be a full house. I found out I wasn't playing by somebody in the press before the game. I got the phone call. I got a text message and I was driving through. And that was disappointment that I was told. I found out that way, and obviously getting into the ground, if you weren't got to be playing, obviously we've been used to starting most games. Nothing said. And then I kind of knew from then that maybe next year, Archie and Scott had different plans or different visions the way that they wanted to go. So from that point of view, I was gutted, actually, really gutted. But another other side, that was James Cragen was part of our car school. So it was me, Sean Welsh, Conrad and James Cragen, and he just came back from his loan spell at Forfar, and just kind of got back in the team. So for him to score the goal that day, it was great. To be fair, the boys played really well that day. It was a great performance. So
yeah.
But as a whole, it started off with a real disappointment.
Yeah. That'll put a smile on fans' faces thinking of you four travelling through in the car and back every day. That must have been great fun.
It was definitely interesting, aye. So you obviously had day 3, they were travelling through from the Edinburgh area, and I used to meet them at Livingston. So you used to get some carry on in the car. Aye, it's definitely. Couldn't tell them on these podcasts anyway.
Stories for another time. The big day obviously became the game at Falkirk.
Mm-hmm.
2-0 victory, win the league, celebrations that fans behind the goal will remember for a long, long time. What was your experience of that day and then the celebrations after?
I remember the day. Obviously, I didn't start the game. So now I think I'd been made aware that I wasn't getting kept on for the following season. So it was just kind of personal pride for me. But it's hard because you joined a club 6 or 7 months prior, and your sole aim was to get them promoted. And then when that happens, it's like, thanks very much, but no thanks. But it was a great day, as in Squiddy scores an unbelievable goal, and then I think we scored again, and it just settled. It was if you're writing a movie, it's a perfect way to kind of to finish a season away from home. And it was great to see like the two, obviously the 2 wee kit men and everybody that was involved with the club that day. Michelle, had got us obviously the t-shirts made up with the slogan, and it was just it was a fitting end, really, to win a championship in the way you did. You always want to win obviously you win a championship, you want to do it in style, and we kind of done that, and we obviously have a proper part of Thistle legend as in Squiddy scoring the goal that he did. It was written in the stars, wasn't it?
It was written, absolutely. And then obviously when you win it away, you get the chance to kind of celebrate at home the next week. A bit of a mad game against Dunfermline, but we'd have lost that if it wasn't for you coming off the bench, I think, to set up the one that gets back in it, and then 3-3 draw, and again, celebrating at Firhill. Did you have family there that day? Was it?
My dad.
How was it?
My dad came with my cousin. My cousin used to go and watch my dad my cousin's mum used to go and watch my dad. So they came, and it was just a personal pride game for me. The way I looked at it was probably got to be my last time at Firhill. I kind of had a slight inclination where I was going, and I wanted to go into high for my sake and my family's sake. So actually, when I came off the bench, I was a bit a man possessed, really. I can remember some of Dunfermline players just saying, like, you calm down, like you've won the league. But I think was it Mark McGuigan came on, and two of us were like a couple of bats out of hell. We just didn't want to get beat, and again it was good. And I got to say cheerio to everyone in a sort of in my way, rather than obviously some players leaving and never got a chance to say cheerio. So it was good that way.
Aye, and you clearly you've been back at Firhill since.
Mm-hmm. I have been back, so I've been back to watch a few games. Good pals with Scott McDonald, and obviously he joined another good time there. So I used to come watch him a couple of times, and then to be asked back to play in Dulce's testimonial was amazing. Thoroughly enjoyed that. But it's a special place, and it's always a team that I have a strong affiliation with.
Brilliant. Speaking of teams, I've asked this question of many players. I don't know if your task is easy or hard because of the period of time you played with the club, but if you were to try and pick the strongest 11 from your time at Firhill, could you rhyme that team off for us?
I couldn't pick 11 because I get all cliche. It was a squad effort. If you look through probably, I'd say 14, 15 boys that year, maybe even 16, they all heavily contributed to winning the league. And it was like I touched on it before. We brought in Andy Dowie and Jordan McMillan, who I thought Dowser was, when he came through the door, I thought he was probably our best player. He played every minute, every game. And again, he was even the same bracket as me at the end of the season. He got released. Jordan obviously got kept on, done really, really well. We brought in Big Graham Smith, goalie. Because obviously Foxy got injured, we brought him in. And then you had people like Christy Elliott, who were kind of a bit back players, but then towards the end of the season just came alive, scored a really important goal away to Hamilton, I think it was. And then you had
Airdrie.
If you had injuries, was it Airdrie or Hamilton?
Yeah. Hamilton. You could be right. I'll check back.
I think it was at their park. I think we won 1-0, and he scored a great goal that day. But if you had injuries like Welsh, you had these injuries. Pardon me. You had obviously Pates, who was outstanding that year, but he hurt his knee towards the end of the season. You had Barnes on there who played every minute. It was, I could to possible pick an 11, and then obviously me and Doyle didn't get the chance to play up front that often with each other because it was either me or him that started. But when we did, we struck up a great partnership, and obviously Ross Forbes came in as well. Just after me, his contribution was crucial. So if I'd been there, say another couple of seasons and been through maybe 2 or 3 squads, that I could have picked a 1 to 11, but it'd been a bit unfair, only been there for 8 months and having so many players contribute to a good season.
Yeah, fair enough. Can't argue with that. What's your, when you reflect on it then, what's your abiding memory of that group of players? And clearly it's a group of players that, keep in touch with each other.
Just special. You get points in your, I think everybody looks back in their career now that I'm at the other side, I'm coaching, that you look back, it'll be fond memories, and nobody can take them away for you. And as well, you've got a winner's medal to show for it. My mentality is there should have been 2 medals there, 2 winners' medals. Obviously the Challenge Cup, but that's football. You've got to ride the highs with the lows. But really, really great times. Like I say, still keep in contact with Conrad all the time, and obviously we've had a few nights out, we've had a few get-togethers. Obviously since the team's kind of dispersed, but good special bunch of boys. You never know. One day they might get back together. You never know.
Get the band back together. We were both right. Christie scored in both those away wins. Something about Lanarkshire for him. So, yeah, you were spot on. But just looking behind you, you see obviously some of your football memorabilia. You talked about keeping your medal. You've got your dad's cap. You've got some pretty sought after items for Thistle fans there.
I have. I've still got one of my dad's original Thistle strips, but it's ripped. So it's got the number 9. The number 9's like embroidered on the back, and it's like that size.
Wow. Defender trying to get hold of him, ripping it.
I've asked him numerous times what happened. He's like, I can't remember. So I've got a few good mementos, and obviously I try and keep as much as I could over my 17, 18 years in the game, and it'll be good to look back when I'm a proper old man.
plenty life in the dog. Yeah, you're coaching now, obviously, and yeah, I think every Thistle fan's just going to enjoy this trip back in time with that special group of players, and just your goal record, alongside your dad's goal record. That's very, very unique, if not one of a kind for Thistle. So it's been a joy speaking to you, Stephen. Thank you very much for your time, and obviously take care, and hopefully see it for a when we're allowed back in.
No problem, pleasure, and that would be nice. Be nice to go back.